crispy cold boy.
I already cracked my beer, but
sure. All right. Well, cheers, boys. So,
yeah.
So we came up with the idea of this podcast in the garage. You know, we talked about it, and you, Bruce, brought the question about what if you had, any money wasn't an object.
Right,
what would be the ultimate build?
Like checks all boxes.
It checks all the boxes, and
right.
so we went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And, for the listeners, watchers, however you're receiving this podcast, it's a pretty interesting question. And you kind of like come up with the knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, whatever I have is my dream build kind of thing.
Well, I feel like I've had this thought many times, like, what is the ultimate build? What's going to do the most, maybe not be the best at everything, but like will be good at most things. That won't leave me out when the guys are doing a set trip. Like, is it good? I wanted something that was capable in the desert, but also capable on trails. Mm-hmm. Had road comforts. I want to be able to confidently drive A to B, whether that be here to Canada, whatever. For me, another box is like, I like stuff with horsepower. Yeah. I want like potential to build horsepower. So, yeah, I mean, I've always landed on, I've been a diesel enthusiast for a long time, so I kind of landed on this truck. I have another one, is my daily, so I've grown to like really get comfortable with that platform, the 2011 6.7 Power Strokes. And after messing with my daily, and it's just been a fantastic truck. I've had it for over 150,000 miles, and it's literally been just nothing but like preventative maintenance and just normal maintenance. I'm like, this is a pretty solid truck.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that the Carly guys are doing some cool stuff. Like the trucks are super capable, and I'm like, man, if I could get an early model 6.7, they're starting to come down in price. That might be a solid truck, and they're comfortable.
Totally.
So.
But yeah, so I was, just as you're listening to this podcast, kind of keep that, like, thinking about what your dream truck would be, whether that's, something you could buy from the factory or something that you build. But so, kind of back up, welcome to the Bad Lines podcast, here with Michael Liakos, who now looks like a cue ball since the last time he's been on here.
Still hot.
And Bruce Baldwin. And so we brought Bruce in here to talk about his pretty badass Super Duty that he's got, Sleeper Duty. Yeah. Or I don't know what the name of the truck is.
Oh, we call it the Chode.
The Chode.
We call it the Chode.
And so before we get into the build, and we'll obviously dissect that, but a little bit about yourself. Like, what do you do for work?
Yeah, I'm a custom cabinet builder. I own my own business in Simi Valley called Baldwin Handcrafted. Builds custom cabinets, furniture, various millworks. So yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years. Love it. It allows me to be creative, and I get to just build stuff with my hands.
Sure.
So.
And how'd you get into the?
My dad. Yeah, my dad he's been in construction for a long time. I started working for him at 16. We got into building cabinets around that time, and I just kind of took it and ran with it. Learned to love it. I didn't really care for it at the beginning, but like anything where I was a 16-year-old kid, what did we like? So
sure.
Fast cars.
I did like fast cars. I mean, at that point in time, if you asked me, like, yeah, I want to build cars for a living, sure. But it's a lucrative business. It allows me to be creative, and yeah, I love what I do. So
and it's everything from like furniture to full kitchens.
Yeah, full kitchens, bathroom vanities, furniture, custom doors, custom windows. I mean, if it's made of wood, yeah, I'll probably build it.
Sure,
if you want. So
yeah, definitely some pretty cool stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
And so as far as kind of into the car world, where would you say, you kind of took off, like how'd you get into the car world in general?
I think, if we go way back, I would fly often. My parents split up when I was young. I would fly to California often, and the one thing, my mom would always give me like $20 before you get on the plane, because I'd fly by myself, and she'd be like, here, get yourself some candy and a magazine. And the options were slim at that point in time, but the one magazine I'd always buy was DuPont Registry. And it was basically like a sales catalog for exotic cars.
Sure.
So it is thick, dude. Like it was like $10. It was expensive. Most of the money would go to that magazine, right? I get that in like a pack of gum.
Yeah.
So, and I just remember scanning through this thing and just daydreaming about like, there's Porsche GT3s and Viper Venoms. And at that point, like Lamborghini Diablos and Countaches. I mean, this is this is mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
And I would never go on a plane flight. I'd fly multiple times a year, and I'd always buy one of those. And these cars are, I'm at that point in time an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these like
you have at that 13 cents left for the $20 your mom gave you.
$300,000 cars,
and you're like, I'm gonna get one of these
one day, So that really, for sure sparked my interest with cars.
I totally get it.
Obviously, pre having a license, pre being able to drive, but yeah, so that just always evolved, into when I actually did get my license. From growing up in Idaho to moving to California, at 16, I got my license, and my parents bought me an XJ. Before I even had my license, I think maybe I had my permit at that point in time, and it was a 2-door XJ Cherokee Chief. I think they consider them. I was on like 32, 33-inch Swamper TSL.
Didn't go anywhere, bro.
Swamper was
like a Rubicon. Oh yeah, dude. It was coil spacers, like a Rubicon Express short arm kit.
And that was your first vehicle.
The first vehicle, but I ended up selling it to my brother before I ever got my license.
Okay.
Right. So because a buddy of mine at that point in time told me about this K5 Blazer that he knew of. And I would always love those. I was always like a square body Chevy guy. I loved the K5s.
They're the best.
And this thing was hooked up. It was this beautiful metallic blue. And it was on 35s, Detroit lockers, 3/4 ton running gear, National Springs, built turbo 400, 205 TKs. Everything but a motor. A blue interior. Like super sick, dude.
That's nice.
Super sick.
You still have it, or?
Nah, dude.
You wish?
I wish, yeah. So I bought that, and at this point in time, I was working for my dad doing construction. So I was making a little bit of money. Not a lot. I was sweeping floors and doing stuff like that. But I scrounged up enough cash to buy an LS1 out of a Firebird, out of a junkyard in Sun Valley. Yeah, it was a wrecked one. And this is kind of pre LS swap stuff. Like this is early 2000s, probably 2004. Now people were doing LS swaps, but it wasn't popular. It wasn't trendy yet by any means, And
information very limited.
Very limited. We were like the swap, like the Meta LS to a Turbo 400. Like the converter options were slim, and like just the tuning. There's no Holley. There was no. I didn't know anything about. I didn't even know if HP tuners was a thing then.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. But we had it. My dad had a sandrail with an LS in it, and we knew that it ran like a Mephi batch fire computer. So we're like, well, because we know someone that can tune this, we're just gonna ditch the factory EFI and like put a Mephi on it. Terrible computer system. It's very dated, and like it was probably like 3 steps back from what actually the LS had.
Sure.
But we tuned it, and it ran good, dude. It was a fun truck. I drove it all the way to Idaho to see family and back. I mean, the thing had loose steering, like typical
Ford leaf spring 4-wheel drive short wheelbase
100% Detroit locker with loose seat, like it just locked and you're like switching lanes, and I drove it all the way up there. And it was a cool truck, man. I still wish I had it, along with many other vehicles I've owned. Sure. At that point I was real young, and I'm like, dude, chicks don't dig old clapped out trucks, right? I think differently now, but I wanted something newer.
The chicks you want to be around.
You wanted something faster.
I wanted something like more modern and like fast and stuff. So
DuPont Registry kind of going through your head.
Yeah, I had to have like the flashy car.
I wonder how much those Lambos have come down.
The Furious days,
bro.
Right?
It was. It literally was like Fast 1 came out.
Oh yeah, so you're looking for that green Eclipse,
Ferrari, pal.
The Toyota Supra. Come on. Yeah. I was 2JZ hunting. So
nice.
Yeah, so I ended up selling that dirt cheap too. Like I probably gave that thing away for like $4,500.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
I
come
think it's
on
probably
now.
worth like 20 now.
Oh,
Easy.
probably more than that. Yeah. So it had a couple blemishes, but it was a pretty mint truck all in
I
all.
don't think you could buy a square body
No.
that has a floor in it for under $5,000 these days.
Yeah, but
it's so expensive.
Yeah, a square body missing a couple
Was that a
fenders.
3/4 ton? A 3/4 convertible, or was it?
Yeah, so it was at 84. So the dual headlight, it was still great. Like it wasn't a 70s, but it was still a rat truck.
It wasn't a full convertible.
No.
Yeah,
but we take the top off, drive PCH, do all the the K5 things.
So did Blazer had a full convertible?
Yeah, early
Yeah,
70s.
in early 70s you can get a full convertible.
Yeah.
Where the shell goes all the way to the
Yeah.
front windshield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty cool. So you take that top off, you're
Dude,
loving
it was
life.
cool, man.
Yeah.
I do miss that. I never experienced that when I had the Bronco. I could never take the top
Yeah,
off.
I know.
It was
a pain in the ass.
It is a nightmare to come off and on, but especially when it's caged. So I sold it, and I bought a regular cab short bed Silverado that was probably 2 years old at that point in time. So it was like a 2004, Silverado regular cab short bed, and it had a 4.8 liter V8 with a 5-speed manual trans from the factory. So it had a New Venture 3500, and in my head I thought, that was the better choice to get chicks, I guess. I don't know.
Sure,
And I wasn't like a lady killer by any means anyway.
Yeah.
So
You're like, you got rid of a cool off-road vehicle
Yeah.
for like a work truck.
it literally was. It was
Yeah.
like base model. It had electric windows and stuff like that. And my buddy that I bought it off of put like a good sound system and stuff like that. But other than that, it was like a pretty stock. It had a intake exhaust in like a Helix power at a throttle body spacer.
Oh,
so it
wow.
whistle, dude.
Wow.
So many people are like, this thing's supercharged. I'm
You're
like,
like, shoot, for sure.
yeah, I wish. Yeah, buddy. I ain't got that kind of money to be talking about, dude. But it would whistle, just driving down the road. So, but that truck did see many phases. I ended up taking the 4.8 out. I got a good deal on an LS1, LS6 at that point in time. My brother was working for a Corvette shop in Santa Clarita, and like the owner's like, oh, I got some parts for you. I'm like, all right, let's do it, Help me swap it, and it ran good. It wasn't like a big cam. It was a factory cam. It was a factory motor-ish, with a little more compression, and it ran good, but it had so much compression because apparently they warped the head on it and then just kept fly cutting it till it's flat. So bumped up the compression. They could never get it to not detonate. And me, I don't even know what detonating is at that point in time. I'm still new. I'm still green with motors, so I'm just flat foot, and it's just crackling under the hood. I'm like, that sounds kind of weird. just blew a head gasket, obviously.
Wow, yeah.
It was shocker.
Yeah.
So then I built a 6-liter LQ9 and with my dad, and that one had a little headwork. Started a little bit more progressive. Got me into learning the motor aspect of understanding the mechanics of a V8 engine, and I roasted that motor, spun a bearing, racing a Mustang, that's cool. Honestly, right around the corner from here too.
Okay.
So I ended up building another motor. I roasted the crank on that, and I ended up building a 408 stroker, full forged bottom end, no holds barred, just did it right, didn't cut any corners. It took me months to save. I was without a truck for freaking damn near a year, I feel like. But that motor was pretty wicked. It was a 500 wheel horsepower stroker. And with going through all these motors, I was still sticking with the factory trans, which is a commercial truck trans. The shift up here. I'm rolling gears like a tractor. And it's there it is.
Yeah.
But it was fun to drive, and then I eventually swapped the trans out for a T56 out of a Corvette. So then it was a proper drivetrain for banging gears and doing fast stuff, and then I just felt like I was getting carried away at that point in time, and I thought it would be smart to sell the truck and get a diesel for work and kind of work on being mature with that aspect, and I got my first diesel.
And this isn't the truck that you're...
This is not the truck. No, I've had multiple diesels. That was a
Single cab?
Single cab. It was a single cab, similar. It was a single cab long bed tool drive 6-liter Power Stroke, which, it was... me can't leave nothing alone.
Yeah.
Put a big turbo on it, tuned it, and all that stuff, and I blew the motor up on that. And
Dude, so that's a few motors already.
Yeah, dude, I've had my share of blown up motors.
That's why you hang out with this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we click.
That's why I drive like.
I'm like, how many motors have you gone to? I'm like, me too.
Dude,
you know, it's how we're like friends.
Totally.
You know.
But all your motors are in the same vehicle.
Yes. Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah.
But so you had the work, and then you got a diesel work truck.
Yeah.
And then, so did you have any other Go Fast stuff?
I've had multiple Fox bodies, as side projects. Nothing that I really had, because at that point in time, I really wasn't making money.
You had a Camaro.
Well, that's later. Yeah, the Camaro came later, but I didn't have the funds to build. I mean, I was renting a room for my brother, and
sure,
barely scraping by. And who am I to think I'm gonna build another car, not living on my own, just rent a room, and so those projects would come and go, but I never had the time to really invest much money into them. But
sure.
So 6-liter blew up. I didn't have the money to fix it. I bought a 7.3 Power Stroke from my brother that he had. And that lasted me a while. It was a good truck, but that one was lifted and simple tuner, Banks tuner or something. And that's when I was like, all right, I got to chill out on hot rodding my dailies, I got to get to work, I got to make money, I got to be smart about it. So while owning that, I did buy multiple side projects. This is years later, as I got a little more financially comfortable. Had a ZJ for, I think you guys remember that purple, that purple one. I didn't go very far. Didn't have anywhere
to park it, so you had to
it was a purple shop. It was a purple ZJ, but it was the limited, so it had that viscous T case. It didn't have a selectable T case. It was
ZJ's a Grand Cherokee?
My Ty's
but they're cool because they're linked front and rear. They're capable from the factory. So, but as I did my research after buying it, I'm like, this is...
Yeah, you bought the wrong one.
I bought the wrong platform to get to where I want to be in wheeling. So I sold that, and then, life changed. I ended up... I was like, I want to get back to fast street racing cars again. So I bought a 2010 Camaro and LS3 manual trans. Fun as hell car to drive, but they're big burly cars. You ever driven one of those? They're not a nimble little car. They're just a comfy, car. And it was quick and fun, but
And you taking these to the track, or you?
I did a couple I've done some 8th mile stuff. I did some roll race events in the Camaro. That was kind of a thing. They'd rent out airports and stuff like that, and you'd kind of do a roll.
Are you asking him if you would take the truck and stuff to the track?
No. Well,
I did take the Silverado to the 8th mile.
No, this guy was street racing illegally.
We're doing full Fast and the Furious, dude.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'd go to Compton at 2 in the morning. I'd leave my house here at 2 in the morning, my apartment. We'd go down to Compton, and they called it the House Hook. I think it was one. I can't remember the name of the street numbers, but it was a street light that people would trailer their drag cars to. They'd line up, and you'd actually...
It gets real.
It's sketchy.
Evening 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30.
Yeah, where there's bedding, and that spot's... There's multiple spots around here that we would do this, but Compton was the most popular spot because the road was just prepped better than any drag strip. The amount of VHT and stuff on that road was unreal. People would wheelie on the street because it's just prepped like a drag strip. But that one was sketchy because there would be you would be racing from an intersection to another intersection. There'd be a dude down there hitting the crosswalk thing to make sure that the light was it was sketch. Yeah, so not the hindsight. I'm that's stupid, But
you're young. You're just doing you're seeing what other people are doing. I could do this, and you just do it.
It's
that mob mentality.
We used to race off Plummer, and between Topanga and Canoga, there's that industrial. I don't know if you know where QMP and stuff is. There's now there's actually road block, speed bumps every 20 feet because the racing was so bad there.
So when you go out to Compton, you're there 2 in the morning or whatever. How long from the start of when the event happens to the cops showing up? How long does that take?
Dude, sometimes we'd be there for an hour because the thing is we would be hiding in the industrials, making our deals. And I never actually raced anybody with my vehicles. They were never that equipped, but my friends had vehicles and I'd help them, and we'd bet money and stuff. But like, so we'd hide in the industrials in the dark, like doing our things on the alleyways.
This idiot would race people on the freeway, what you call roll racing, where you'd put it in second gear at about 45 miles an hour, and then this guy in his single cab truck with stock tires on it would race people from like 45 to like 130, 140 miles an hour probably.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Stock Michelin, like 265 truck.
That little truck wouldn't hook up because it made 500 something horsepower, but
the weight bias too is terrible.
It's springs and it's not set up right, The
weight bias was terrible. So yeah, I mean, there'd be times I'd get back at like 8 a.m,
Just wad of cash, hopefully.
No, I mean, no. I didn't have that kind of money to throw down. I wish, dude. No. But there's guys, there was some guys, some big rollers that are like, there's like $10,000 pots. I'm like, who's got that kind of money to throw around? So.
But okay, so you have this like street racing phase.
Yes.
And then at what point were you?
I don't even know if it was a phase. Can you consider it a phase? He literally had fast cars, street cars.
Yeah.
From when he was a kid till pretty much
now,
5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I took a fat break after getting in a little bit of trouble. I've had my wrist slapped a few times by the cops, so I should. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I'm in my mid to late 20s. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you gonna
for sure
stop throwing money at the state with tickets? You know what I mean?
But so you kind of are like, I don't want to say done with the fast stuff, but you decide like, hey, this isn't a great game plan for my life.
Yeah.
And so you get into. Did you?
Well, I'm gonna interject a little bit. Yes, I agree that's exactly what happened. But that was around the time that he met me. That I met Bruce, because I was helping Tommy at the Easy Street shops. Tommy had a shop like literally 3 bays down from where he was working, his millworks place. So he would like kind of pop in a little bit, and he was real shy, but he would come over and he would like kind of check out what we were doing. I know, it's hard to believe, but he back then he was just.
Well, these guys are building cool stuff, so it was intimidating. Like
he wasn't sure. He's like, I don't know these guys.
Like real deal trucks. I see Tommy rolling in his F100. I'm like, that's a dope looking project. Sure. These dudes are fabricating. I don't know anything about fabricating.
Yeah.
Like I was intimidated. I was like, these guys seem legit. I don't think so now, but I'm just kind of
now you're like,
that's
great. You're like, look at that well. What do you
wow, you're gonna do it, So that's probably right around the time I was really phasing out of that, But the itch to always build something, is still there. Like I'm still at heart like full on horsepower enthusiast. I'm a motor first guy. So when I'm looking to build a new vehicle, I'm thinking about the drivetrain first. Mm-hmm. And especially with what we've gotten into, what you guys have introduced me to, the point-to-point stuff. To me, and it's different for everybody. Like some people pick suspension. What's the easiest suspension to get what I want first, or what's
and that's why you got the Bronco.
100%, right?
Well, so just to kind of segue, you get out of the street racing, you meet this dude.
Yeah. And
so then your first go fast was the Bronco.
The first go fast off road vehicle was the Bronco, right? Yeah, I wanted to get reintroduced into off roading. I loved what you guys were doing. Like I saw you guys were doing the DMC trips, and
you saw my Bronco. Well,
basically is what it was. And for the listeners, this is kind of like as we kind of tailed off on. It
was. I would say like I was like one of the latecomers of the DMC.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but it was like everybody at this point, we had been kind of doing that for 10 years.
Yeah, you guys have been doing it for a long time.
Now everybody's getting married. Yeah. Like we talked about a couple podcasts ago. So you're kind of coming in.
I'm like second generation for sure.
And so the Bronco, when you got it, was it bone stock?
It was bone stock. Yeah. Drove to Rialto, and this is right before that Bronco market inflated. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I was like talking to Mikey, and I want to do something. What's like a cost-effective way for me to get into?
I told him I was like, you want to get a mid-90s Bronco.
He's like Bronco, obviously.
92 and newer. It's the truck that people like the best looking. If you want something that's fuel injection and stuff, I could argue that I think the Bullnose is a pretty cool looking truck. But they don't typically come with fuel injection. So I was like, get this truck. It's comfortable. The interior's as nice as you're going to get for a 90s truck, And
I'd say like side by side, the Bronco is a better built vehicle than the Blazer.
For sure.
That generation.
The interior,
the interior build quality is. But yeah, so I started hunting Marketplace, doing my thing. And that Bronco came up. And it looked aesthetically like pretty solid truck, dude. When I got it, it had like paint blemishes. That single stage paint was peeling and stuff like that. But the guy was asking like $3,500. Dude, I'm gonna go get this thing, and Mikey's like, yeah, check it out. And I came home with it, went there. I was like, yeah, no brainer. This thing's sick. Interior's mint on that thing for what it was. You know, super clean truck. Little 5-liter.
We went and wheeled it like a week after he died.
I took him to Gorman. It took his like
goofing around.
He just got the 7.3 work truck with the service body. I don't even know if you do the coilover.
Yeah, it was that was all done. That's why we're like, let's go test it.
So we took his truck and my truck. And, it's just stock trucks, but that thing stock mobbing those Broncos is fun.
Yeah, they're the TTB.
Yeah,
they worked
a reason. It was a great setup, and it started. It started my new path of like learning and experimenting with the off road thing, and so basically, I just. Mikey had Tommy's old shop, and I was like, let's just start. I want to start chipping away at parts. Like I want to build a pallet, right? And he's like, all right, cool. I got this spot on the rack for you. Let's just start collecting parts. So I don't know. It probably took me 8-9 months collecting parts. I come up with a little bit of cash. Let's get some shocks.
Yeah.
A little more cash. Let's order some wheels. So I finally got to the point of having basically everything we needed to do the first stage of the Bronco build, and that truck to this day is still a fantastic truck.
Yeah.
It's a great truck. It taught me a lot about fabricating. Mikey did 99%. He did basically all the work on that thing, and I would put my aesthetic taste on what I wanted the Bronco to look like and stuff like that.
I would say that I did most of the brunt work, and obviously I did the like geometry aspect part of it, but really what you were learning was you were like, basically this was like your streetcar scene, but it's different now. So now you're like, okay, this off-road stuff, like, but in the streetcar scene, like things are done this way, but you guys do it this way in the off-road, that's cool. But what if and then that's kind of how everything, in my opinion, started kind of blending. Where like things can look a certain way and function a certain way too.
There's like that happy medium for sure.
For sure.
And I always had a thing for sleepers, like that. Like my Silverado, stock as a rock looking. Camaro, stock looking. By like a slight lowering spring or something like that. Sure. But like nothing flashy. I've never been like a super flashy guy. So the Bronco, I wanted to maintain that. I really wanted like a period correct looking pre-runner. So I wanted like stock bumper, little skid plate, little light bar on the stock bumper, stock wheels up until we got the methods, beadlocks, but like that thing was pretty sleeper.
Yeah, it was.
Interior pretty sleeper. I paint matched the roll cage. I did like PRPs that were color matched the interior, and like I really like that. Maybe that's like a blessing and a curse, but I just like things that aesthetically when they can be aesthetically.
Yeah, I mean 100% though. It was 35s, right?
Yeah, 35.
And it had like a Curry rear end, didn't it?
No, I had 4. We built a 9-inch. We built a 9-inch.
Okay,
but 35 spline axles.
Actually, this guy trusted. That was like his first real welding project.
Yeah.
The guy did not know how to weld at all, and he's like, I want to learn how to weld. I'm like, well, you need to trust your rear axle, so here you go. I'll show you how to kind of do it.
He helped me preload it and do all
and the truss didn't fit that great. And I'm like, this is perfect. You're going to learn how to fill gaps and make things look right. And
For sure.
It was the perfect project.
Yeah, it was. And honestly, it turned out fine.
Yeah, because now this guy's a pretty competent welder, if I'm being honest. Like, he doesn't weld that often, but every once in a while, he needs to do something construction related. He walks into my shop, he turns the welder on, and I don't have to babysit him. I'm like, no.
It definitely made me more comfortable. So,
But it was, and you built the motor though.
I built, technically speaking, I built multiple motors for that truck.
Got it.
It had the stock 5-liter, and that was, I was when I sold that truck, I was at a crossroads, right? Like, the truck was as built as it could get without going full built motor, 4-over glass. I'm like a fiberglass hater. Mm-hmm. I'm never like, it just never fits good. It just flops around. Like, I just seen too many too many bro runners that are just flopping fenders, and I just never had it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And there's like there's nice trucks with fiberglass. I'm not gonna say there's not.
Sure.
It's just not my thing. And I built a small block Ford for it. little stroker, some aluminum heads. It was a pretty sick motor, and I just didn't have like the time and like the interest of actually going through with the swap. And I still needed to figure out what trans I was doing. So I was like, you know what? At this point in time, you know, if I keep the truck, maybe an LS might be the way to go. Mm-hmm. I wanted to keep it Ford. I was trying to be Ford purist about it. But I'm like, as I'm learning about the small block Ford great motor, but I'm looking about it and the amount of money I'm pouring into this motor.
As he's learning about the motor, he's already built the motor.
Yeah. No, I bought
his motor's like done, and then he's like kind of scratching his head. He's like, do I want to put this thing in the truck? Because this thing would be nice in like a hot rod or early Bronco or whatever. It's a great
like dollars per cents, because I built multiple LSs in my Silverado and stuff like that. They're 6-bolt main. They got, you know, huge aluminum heads. They're, you know, there's so many things about the LS that
they're like the Duplo block of Legos. Mm-hmm. I mean, a small block Ford is like a Lego. You know, it's got all these different. It's complicated. LS like a Duplo. You're like, put the thing block here, thing goes here, thing goes here. Done. I'm done.
Yeah, MLS gaskets. You know, they're just, and you can get into them cheap, and the aftermarket performance aftermarket obviously for those things is absolutely endless. Not that Ford has a huge market, but they're still like they're a gargoyle motor. They're dated, you know. So, you know, I bought the Ford, how to build a Ford book. I obviously knew basic, you know, understanding of like torque specs, miking bearings, and that understanding. But like, there's still things I was learning, like, oh, you know, you gotta RTV the China walls, and you gotta like how to like set your cam timing. It's a little different and stuff like that. So, anyways, built the motor. It looks super sick. Big old Holley high ram, aluminum heads. It's a super cool motor, but I just didn't want to follow through with it. I ended up selling the motor for basically what I put into it, and I just chalked it up to like, cool, I learned how to build a small block. That was sick, you know, totally.
But so what I'm kind of gathering here to kind of get back to the beginning, what we were talking about is, it's not checking the boxes.
It's not. It wasn't.
For years before he sold it, he just kept like just making small changes to it, and he's like, I don't know, something about this thing. Like he's like, I love it. It's great in the desert. It's super capable. It's everything that I thought it would be. Yeah. But it's just not tugging at my heartstrings.
And the one thing that truck really lacked for me was drivetrain. Right. So, and I know, like, to do a proper drivetrain swap, it's expensive. And labor intensive. And I would find myself like, I want these projects I build, like I want to enjoy these things on the weekend. I drive a big utility bed truck. You know, it's a great truck, but I drive it daily. I want to be like when I want to run to the store and do these things, I want to jump in something else that's cool just to rip around weather. But that truck I built, it was so overly built in the sense where it was caged, high bolstered bucket seats, swing steer. It wasn't like a quick jump in the truck and go kind of thing. And I just found that the truck just sat. And I'm like, just filthy dusty all the time. It would sit so long the battery would be dead. And just like man, if I have a project, I should want to drive it off-road and on-road. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
all the time. Anytime
I want to be stoked to drive it, you know? Sure. And I just found myself it was just more convenient to jump in my work truck and just run errands in that. And it's a crew cab long bed, big truck. So,
sure.
But I still wasn't sure I wanted to part with the Bronco. Like, it was hard. I invested a lot of time. It was kind of sentimental. It was, you know.
But it was dialed.
It was so dialed.
The trip.
So when the boys are like, let's go, I'm like, yeah, let's go. That truck has never, and it never gave me any mechanical issues really at all. That little 5.0 ripped for what it was.
Were you worried with that new motor that it was going to be then a domino effect of suspension?
Well, 100% it would be, right? Like, we've already had talks of linking that truck, like a cantilever link setup, and I don't know. I still thought that even with the built motor, I wouldn't find myself wanting to jump in it and drive. And I think also, like, having an overly built motor, I don't know if I was as confident to do the future trips I wanted to do.
Sure.
Yeah, because this guy wants to jump in a truck and drive it to Utah.
Oregon.
You know? Oregon.
Canada.
Go visit his dad in northern Idaho. You know, it's like the Bronco, my Bronco, we'll use that as a perfect example because it has the big motor and it has a more modern drivetrain and this, that, and the other thing. But I'm not driving that thing anywhere. That's further than an hour. It's just not comfortable.
Arguably a trailer queen now.
Sure.
It's always been, but like in my head, I'm like, I'll build this bigger, faster, cooler motor with an overdrive transmission and it'll be great on the highway. Well, guess what? It still has bias ply tires. It's still it's just the same truck. It's just faster. It's not any more fun to drive. So I think that's where he was at. He was like, my truck was at that point kind of getting done, and he's like, oh yeah, maybe this isn't my future.
I saw myself building that truck in one direction, right? Like the more I got into it, the more it was turning into just a desert killer. And
it was.
And it worked great. And I part of me is like, I want to go even faster in the desert. I want to hit the big whoops like Mikey. I want to like continue this build, but at the same time, I'm like, the farther I build something in one direction, the less it's going to go. The less it's going to go in the other direction. So, at that point in time, I was tossing up ideas, right, of different builds, and I've always paid attention to the Carly trucks, the Dodge guys and all that stuff. I'm like, man, and Jesse with the Ram, like, and Tucker, Zarba and Tucker, like those guys, like, I'm like, you know what, those guys aren't like, and they'll agree with me that they're not the fastest trucks out there, but they're getting those trucks out there and they're maintaining a speed with everybody. They're not holding anybody back. They're having a good time. They're doing it. And I'm like, I could build something like that, and still have all the comforts. Those guys, Jesse to this day tows his trailer with that same Dodge across country and still goes off road. And I'm like, I could build something like that as a secondary truck and maybe get a little bit more crazy with it. I can get a little bit more wild.
And kind of have it be a more like utilitarian,
100%,
like a camping vessel, if you will.
Right. I hate to use the term overland.
Oh,
it's not.
I don't. There.
But Prelander. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. We actually we go fast on our truck, so that's separates us a little bit. So yeah, I saw the Carly trucks can go pretty quick. They're capable. I thought there's room to grow there. I'm completely familiar with the F-250 drivetrain of this year. I've had great luck with my other truck, so I was super comfortable with that motor. And again, I think when selecting a project to build, like, one of the things that's super important is, what are you going to be most comfortable working on the trail? Like, what are you most familiar with? I know you're really familiar with the 22RE, so like, you already owning one and then buying a second, like, you already know the remedies, the future problems. Easy. And I learned that with my work truck. And those trucks are old enough now that they've come down in price, right? So I was kind of hunting around just looking for regular cab Power Stroke 6.7s, and I came across one. I found one that was at the right price that I was comfortable buying it and like modifying it, not chopping up a brand new diesel. Right? Like, I wasn't gonna do that. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't got the kind of funds. But I found this truck for $12,000, which is cheap for a modern diesel.
And it had its problems.
It was a farm truck.
Like, this thing lived in the mud, dude. It's like, a mudder. Its mother was a mudder. Its father was a mudder. This thing is a mudder, dude.
I don't know what, like, we're finding mud in like the center console. We're like, what is happening here? So I drove all the way. It was a Central California truck, so it was like an agricultural truck of some sort. So drove up there. Obviously, the pictures, it looked like a beauty.
Of course.
Yeah, you're like, I get there, thing's leaking oil. It's, pretty rough around the edges. Had like a one-day paint on it on the bed because it had some damages. Yeah. But the more I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? Like, I want to cut this thing up anyways. Like, what am I really worried about?
You just want to make sure the drivetrain.
Right, the drivetrain was good. But like, the thing purred like a kitten. The motor was great. The trans shifted good. And I'm like, oil. I could fix an oil leak. I could fix this stuff. So I was like, I went through with it. I bought the truck, brought it back. But I still had the Bronco. So I brought it back, and originally, I was just up and off that fence and selling the Bronco so many times. Mikey knows.
For months.
Dude. Yeah. And I just couldn't part with the Bronco yet, so I was like, well, I have the second diesel, like, it'd be kind of cool to have like a street truck again, I know I can make this thing fast.
Here we go.
Yeah,
that's where it went.
We're going to cross it 2 a.m.
Exactly. Yeah. So I employed Mikey to cut it into a short bed, right? I hunted for a short bed on market price. Like the actual F-250 bed, they're really hard to find. A short bed, and I found one in San Diego. I went down and got it, and I was collecting some Go Fast parts, like motor parts. I got connected with the guys at SPE. I got a 70 millimeter turbo for it, a stroker, CP4 injection pump, no limit intercooler, like basically everything to go on top. A stock motor, right? But it was everything I needed to make 600-700 horsepower. So we at the same time of cutting it down and putting the short bed on, which was actually a fairly easy task.
Yeah, wasn't that bad.
Wasn't bad at all. We put the new motor stuff on it that we had to delete it. Don't tell nobody. There's no smog stuff on it, and which you can't have when you cut into a short bed. There's no place for the DPF or anything to go. And we put the turbo on it, did all that stuff, and pushed it out the door, and it was retarded.
And this, but this was you pull it out the door, so it's got a short bed.
It's a short bed,
but it's still stock.
It's stock.
It's stock tires.
Stock.
In fact, it was like it sat so tall in the rear because we made it into a short bed, and the truck's light. We deleted some stuff. Obviously, that's what they call it, deleting it. So we got rid of the factory lift block, just put it down to like 2-wheel drive height in the rear. But this truck was so fat.
It was dumb.
4-wheel drive launches, you're hold on to that steering wheel. That's all I'm gonna say, because that thing wants to torque steer. It was
rolling fourth gear burnouts. Because that thing makes I put it on my buddy Alex at New Era's Dyno, and it made on a mild tune, right? Like there's a lot left in the tank because we didn't want to give it the sauce completely yet. It put down a solid 600,000 foot-pounds of torque, like 600 horsepower, 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and a truck and on the Catskills at that point in time weighed 6,500 pounds, with a 23-gallon tank or whatever. So the thing was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And as I kind of was getting into that build, I realized I don't have the funds to continue the Bronco build, continue this build in the direction. I was like, I'm gonna do the diesel drags. I'm gonna do the ultimate call out. I'm gonna go to Indianapolis and race with all the big diesel guys.
He was talking to me about this stuff. I'm like,
how freaking cool would it be, right?
I don't know. I'm not from that scene.
I'm a compound it and build a motor, and I'm just looking at dollar signs in my head. I'm like, oh, dude. Throttle back here, buddy.
Yeah.
Who are you to think you can build and maintain your work truck that makes you money, and build a real go fast pre-runner. At that point in time, do an LS, a built LS.
You sold the small block Ford.
I sold the small block Ford. By the time I got an LS and a 205, all that stuff on your shelf, 480. I had everything to literally do an LS, but I was gonna build the LS, big heads. I can't leave anything alone. And build a compound turbo
and go race over the country.
I'm just all right, buddy, you gotta pick a direction here.
I love it.
And I was like, you know what? I don't need to be drag racing again. I don't need to be getting into that circuit. I just want something that I can confidently jump in, go on the trips, do a point to point, drive it on the highway home, go to the mountains, do the Rubicon, just go up and fish. Whatever it is, go. And at that, I also, a second thing was I got a second dog, and throwing the dogs in the back of the Bronco, they're leaning against the back chair, they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, it'd be, what would be really cool is if I did a Carly-esque build on a single cab short bed Super Duty.
With the shell.
And I could do the platform in the back, and the dogs can just lay as they please. I can have a pull-out drawer in the back, and just simple Deaver and a 3.0 shock in the front with a coil. And that thing it'd be fine. It would do everything that we keep doing with the Bronco. I'm not going to be front of the pack, but it's going to be comfortable. It's got modern air conditioning. It's got,
cruise control.
It's just a
again, checking the boxes.
Checking boxes, right? It's checking all these boxes. It can kind of do most things well. And so I posted up the Bronco for sale. I was serious this time. I'm like, I think this could work. I think I could build a cool truck. And
I had my doubts for sure.
Mikey and
I don't have a extensive background in solid axle go fast stuff. I do a lot of beam stuff, a lot of ARM stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this thing's gonna be like you're trying to build a tow rig. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, essentially. But that was also like another thing. Like, I know these drivetrains are built for extensive towing, so they got extra coolers. They got an insanely robust transmission. The 6R140 is a very good transmission. They got, this thing is meant for extensive abuse when towing. So I'm like, those trucks that are with this drivetrain can get up to upwards of 10,000 pounds and towing, right? And I'm like, well, this truck's pretty light. Like, this thing, like the cooling and the trans and stuff, that thing probably won't even see any abuse with like a little off-roading. What I'm trying to do with it, it's a light truck now with a overly built cooling system, overly built transmission. So that was another reason. I'm like, yeah, dude, I think this could actually be a pretty cool build. So I sold the Bronco. This kid came up from Ocotillo Wells looking to get into something more catered to his family. I think he had a Jeep or a side-by-side at that point in time, and he's like, I want something a little faster. I'm like, that's the perfect truck for you, dude. So I parted ways with it. He's loving it, still has it. I see him post pictures all the time. And I took some funds from that, and I'm like, all right, let's, where should we start on this build? Mikey's like, well, let's address the front first. So landed on doing a 3.0 coilover with a Carly tower, but we wanted a little bit more than what Carly offered out of their coilover kit. So we got there, and I think there was some confusion too. We thought that maybe you could shoehorn a 12-inch shock in a Carly tower.
So what happened was I had Tucker give me some dimensions.
I remember I got the dimensions.
Yeah. You helped him. Yeah. And I sent those over to Tyler at ADS, and we were talking, and I don't know where the confusion happened, but we ended up with a shock that was like 3 inches compressed too long to fit. And I'm like, that's a big amount. That's a big difference when you're trying to fit a shock that's already like pretty big up into there's not a whole lot of room in that truck right now yet. It still has dual batteries. He has a vacuum booster. Like, there's a wiring,
ABS module is like
a lot of stuff going on.
Tower.
So now I have the shock that's 3 inches too long, and Bruce is like, can you make it fit? And I'm like, let me see what I can do. So we did some extensive modifications by like changing the tower, the Carly tower, and moving the shock mount location, and we did everything that we could. But yes, so now he has I think it's 11 5/8 travel ADS like 3.0 shock with the adjuster.
Yeah,
in the front.
What we ended up doing,
the front's basically
this dude was about ready to throw in the towel. He's like, it's fuck city, it'll never work. Like,
fuck city.
Yeah, like it's not. He was like, I can't. I'm like, you're just stuck with 10 inches of travel, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, no. I'm like, I think we can make it fit, and like, we were like, well, let's just take a breather. Let's go grab lunch and think about this for a minute. And we were like, well, what if we like? I with what I've learned from the Bronco, I'm like, well, can we hang the shock off the front of the axle?
Yeah.
Like, does it have to be on top of the axle? Because I see all the Desolate guys, all these guys on the beams are hanging that shock off the front. Like, he's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we can. And then Mikey goes back there. He's like, I think I can cant this thing back on an angle. I think we don't like. What if we like re-drilled this Carly tower and like kind of shoved it back on an angle to get the shock kind of laid back a little bit. And same day he came up with like the position. He cycled it. He's like, dude, we're getting 14 inches.
Yeah, 14. There's 14
inches
straps.
Yeah, 14 inches. He's like, we're getting 14 inches of travel, and he's like, it's working good. And I'm like, sick.
Cool.
We got to figure it out,
And this is stock radius arms.
Stock radius arms.
Steering, like everything's real basic still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we haven't done anything extensive.
Rear is stock still. We're on 35s and rear stock. And I took the 35s off my work truck and ended up getting a more daily friendly tire wheel setup for the daily, and I took the Methods and 35s off that. And I think this was right before the Halloween trip of one year, and we went out, and like the front felt great, but man, the rear end is just
dump truck.
Dump truck, 3/4 ton, just in a short bed too. You not only
you lost the weight.
Oh, you lost the weight and shoved that thing. Spring rate's the same, not good.
Yeah.
But we did put a 2.5 ADS shock under the rear. And my thought was like, I know we're gonna change this. We're gonna address the rear. Like, I could always use the rear shocks on my other truck, whatever. Mm-hmm. And again, like that's another part of having two of the same trucks is like when you're buying spare parts. Like I can have a spare unit bearing in that thing. I can have a spare, ball joints, like motor stuff, steering parts. like the cool thing is like I have essentially two of the same truck. If my tow rig craps out and needs a unit bearing, well, I got my toy's got the same setup, so I could be robbing parts off the other to get myself home. So again, that
checking boxes,
checking boxes, right? Like this is another thing where I was like, this makes sense. This is so. We did the Halloween trip, came back, and we were kind of like, we knew that there was going to be the New Year's. There's typically Thanksgiving, and I don't know if we went out for Thanksgiving, but we're kind of prepping to address the back. And I think at that point in time, we're like, all right, Devers and those 2.5s is going to be solid. And
we even ordered custom Devers. Again, truck's lighter than any other normal 3/4 ton truck. We don't make a single cab short bed. So we scaled it.
I mean, now
we knew how much it weighed and stuff like that. Yeah. So we're like, let's go get some Deeps. Scott over at Devers is going to make us some Devers. It's going to be bitchin'.
Yeah. And at that point, I'm like, all right, mild build. Mild build. It's just, and I still think it would have been a cool build on the Devers, but at some point in time, I think I got kind of impatient with Devers lead time. Nothing against Dever. And
they're just building stuff as they can.
Right. They're trying to keep up. It's a high demand. Yeah. And we're getting close to King of the Hammers, right? And I'm like, there's no way I'm not.
And this is 23?
2023?
Or is it this year?
Was it this year? Yeah, it's this year.
Yeah, it's this year.
24.
24, okay.
Yeah, so this is like, the fall of 2023 is when we ordered the Devers.
Got it, yeah.
And we're getting closer to it, and I was kind of getting impatient, and like, we don't have a solid answer on when they're delivering. We're really kind of cutting it close. I think we're getting to the mid-December by this point, and obviously King of the Hammers is February. I'm like, and Mikey, I think it was like early. The entire time, Mikey's like, "You should link your truck, dude." I'm like, bro.
Well, I only said that because he was planning on linking the Bronco initially.
Yeah,
like, that was the plan. Like, we were gonna link the Bronco. We talked about it for many years. Like, it was gonna motor swap. We're linking it. Like, that's the plan of the truck. And then I was just like, hey, look, I'm being honest. Completely transparent. I'm like, I don't know if these springs are going to be here in time. Right. They ended up coming in time.
Yeah.
Because we custom ordered them. We had to take them. Yeah. They ended up coming in time, but it was like a week before King of the Hammers. Like, we didn't know. But anyway, I was like, I'm not sure if they're going to be here in time. We could link this truck.
Right.
Like, we can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to do it? And of course, and he's just like, it's money, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. Like, we ultimately ended up linking it, obviously, but at the time it was a whole back and forth.
Sure. It was tough. It was a tough
because that's a big decision.
Huge
that's
decision.
Totally different.
I'm like, let's skip the step of the leaf springs and let's just do what you want to do anyway.
Yeah. So we talked to Tyler ADS, and we started collecting parts, right? So we kind of got a build list going to link it. We talked to Tyler ADS. I ended up just pulling the trigger on their return resi, the MBR 3.0s, kind of like they're fresh on the market, not a lot of R&D on them, but I'm like, I thought that would be the ticket because I still was trying to do like single shock setup and that quiet,
no bypass.
It's internally bypassed, but like they seem to be like a pretty solid theory on those shocks, and they worked killer on like the Ultra 4 tracks. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. I'm like, at this point in time, I'm like, let's just do it right. Let's do it right this time. And we got the rough stuff links, and then we ended up to traditionally 4-link it. We had to move the fuel tank to the rear, and we ended up. What was cool is we found the cabin chassis F450, 550s. They have a 40-gallon rear-mounted tank, and S&B makes like a poly one, like an aftermarket one. So the cool thing is like that thing fit right between the frame rails. Mikey obviously made a cradle for it. The factory sending unit dropped in. The wiring harness plugged right in. Like it was like meant to be kind of thing.
Which before this truck had, you said a 23-gallon.
It's like a 23-gallon, but
which sucks when you're talking about the point-to-point trips. I mean, even though diesel gets better mileage than
but there was no room for the upper links.
Normal diesels do. This thing probably does.
I mean, the thing does well. Like it's 15, 16 on the highway, like on a off-road.
Yeah, but what's it get on a point-to-point trip? Not 14, 16.
With me driving, I'm just I'm letting her eat a little bit.
You need the 40-gallon
tank. It'll burn through it for sure. But
so
thankfully,
40-gallon tank.
40-gallon factory tank, which is cool, or factory-ish tank.
Yeah.
But everything dropped right in. I'm just trying to think of what else. It was, Mikey did a lot of thinking, a lot of math on how he wanted the anti-dive and the pinion angle and how he wanted.
It was really important on a truck that's this short, this heavy, and doesn't.
And originally, we kind of had a reverse theory on what you thought. Mikey wanted the rear to grow.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought we would want a lot of anti-squat in the rear.
He thought he wanted that rear end to really push down to bite because the truck made so much power. Mm-hmm. And after talking to Tyler, I think he's like, and Brian, you want more weight transfer? I think is that the idea of having to squat a little bit more?
Definitely the idea.
Which throws that weight back on that rear axle and keeps that front end light, which I think was totally the right move with having the solid axle. That really allows that solid axle to lay back and get on top.
Yeah, and when you double the wheel travel numbers in the rear versus the front, you definitely need the rear to do all the work.
So front is strapped at 13?
13.
Yeah, and then the rear is what?
Strapped at 22,
21, something like that, yeah.
And there's no C-notch. It's all factory frame in the rear. This is not a back half truck. This is, Mikey came up with a really cool plate tower. And what I really wanted was I had like one of those like plywood bed platforms. Mm-hmm. I wanted everything underneath that. I wanted to open the shell and it just be like a bed platform. I could crawl in there and sleep, checking boxes. Right, I wanted to be able to sleep in it. I wanted to be able to haul my gear, so I built the towers are wide outside the frame, right? So then I built myself like a plywood drawer that all my gear straps to. That's all underneath the bed platform. Mm-hmm. So it was, for me, he's like, "Are you cool with these numbers?" I'm like, bro, yeah, 20 some inches of travel. How could I? Yeah, that's plenty, right?
But you guys, the truck's now built. You still are. It's a total unknown of how if it's going to work.
Yeah, no.
And then if it's going to work.
So when we initially built the truck and we went and goofed around at Halloween, the 13 inches of front wheel travel, completely stock rear minus some bolt-in shocks.
Yeah.
That was when I kind of saw the light a little bit. We were just goofing around, playing around in the sand, and I'm like, wow, this truck actually works 5 times better than I thought it would right at this current stage. I think if we had some serious wheel travel in the rear, and that's kind of why I was trying to push him. I'm telling you, I think linking the truck is the answer because even though you only have 13 inches of front wheel travel strapped up, I think we can get this truck to go fast. And he's like, I don't really care about going, at the time, he's like, I don't really care about going fast. I just want to be able to go on the trips. I want to be able to rock crawl. I want to be able to go to the mountains. I want to be able to go fishing, whatever. And I'm like, dude, say less, but I think we can make this truck go fast and be really comfortable on the road too. So that's when, after I ended up talking him into linking it, we linked it, and I kind of had an idea that it would work good, but then we took it to King of Hammers, and I think that thing worked twice as good as anyone ever could have imagined.
We took it out for the first rip in the whoops, and we just like looked at each other like, whoa. Yeah, dude, what did we do?
Yeah,
this thing's too fast for not having a cage.
Yeah,
you got 600 some horsepower, 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, a lot of unsprung weight. If that thing went on its lid, that's a lot of weight underneath you or on top of you at that point in time. Yeah. And that truck just gets up and is so composed.
Yeah, and it wants to go faster, but you can't go faster because you don't have a roll cage.
And the thing is, like, all the videos that we've kind of posted, that's in 4 high. And that thing points and shoots, dude. Like, if you're in the whoop or, like, anywhere, you just turn and give it gas and it bites on all fours. And it's hitting big, like, medium-sized, not big whoops. I'm saying, like, medium-sized, most whoops. And that thing's just biting and going. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it likes it when you're kind of on the throttle. And it seems like those ADSs, the harder you push it, the better those things feel.
For sure.
For sure, dude.
But so KOH, when you first took it out, it's on 37.
37s, yeah.
37s, and then your 37s with the, was it Toyos? What did you have on there? Or
Nitto Trail Grapplers.
You first had the Milestars.
I had the Milestars, but I think I dumped
those. I don't know if you ever took the Milestars on a trip. You had those things for like 3 weeks.
I drove them to Oregon on like a road trip.
I think that's what ruined it. He bought them, drove the truck.
They're so cool.
The truck was then linked. Yeah. And you had the Milestars on it, and you went to Oregon. So the first trip.
No, so when I took it to Oregon was actually before the Halloween trip. It had actually just had Carly Bilstein style shocks and coils front and rear. It was pretty basic.
Okay, so that was before the coilovers.
Before the coilovers. I forgot we kind of threw those on there just to get on that trip, right? Remember, because I have those coils on my crew cab now.
Yes.
But no, I had the Milestars, but they were like a used tire, all cupped, and I'm like driving down to Oregon for 3 days doing this thing.
Yeah, it's not the tires' fault. The tires.
But I was like, I got back and I'm like, let's just buy some good tires, and that's I think we got the tires at like the same time as like doing the coilovers.
Well, and so the 37s, you're just like, hey, we could push 40s. Why not? It would be cool if it was on 40s. I think what most people.
Yeah, I think the idea was, again, it's like you go back to your like, if we can get like some race takeoff 40s, some BFGs, like they're so cheap, I can run those. They're great. They're cheap. They're huge.
Yeah.
Let's get some, you know?
I also thought that maybe with the limited front travel, those 40s would kind of help absorb some of those holes, you know? Which, you know, again, the truck's very capable, but I do see it suffering on a lot of the hard edge stuff in the front. It's a lot of front axle weight. When we did that point-to-point to Mount Charleston, there was a lot of, like, cross-cut, rain runoff, square edge stuff. It was pretty uncomfortable. You know, so I think part of that was like, I think the 40s would probably eat some of that up a little bit. A lot of it doesn't suffer from the washboard chatter like the Bronco did, but you still feel it. You know, and again, I kind of in theory, I'm like maybe a bigger tire might absorb some of that. So, and I mean, I thought it looked cool.
I feel like any vehicle with a stock dash, you're just feeling those.
You just
motorcycle mouse. The dash has just got nowhere to go.
See it,
like you guys, we'll be on a trip and I'll be in the mouse and everybody's on the radio bitching about the chatter. And there's no dash in there. It's all metal, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah,
it's just
it's so light, anyways.
Yeah,
but and I thought it looked cool.
Sure,
I thought it looked cool.
Sure,
you know,
and so you've got sliders on it. Just got the Mercenary off-road bumpers.
Yes, that's the newest edition. The sliders were on it when we built the truck for Hammers, but Todd at Mercenary built me the front and rear bumpers. He already offered the front bumper, which I'm like, again, I'm like a stock. I like stock looking things, but I did want to do a winch in this truck. I wanted to do more crawling. I wanted to like be able to accommodate a winch. I don't like any F-250 winch bumper. They're all these bulldoggy
road armor.
Whatever you want. They're just
reminds you too much of home.
Idaho. Big old brush guard. And Todd's the only one that made something that I thought was aesthetically pleasing. And, you know, it's very aesthetic. I think it's a sick looking bumper.
Sick.
It's sick.
It looks good.
The amount of work he puts into those is unreal. And then I ordered a rear bumper from him, but like before he got started on it, he had quite a bit of timeline. I mean, he's hand building all these bumpers. And he offered a high clearance rear bumper for the Dodges, and I hit him up. I was like, "Hey man, is there any way we can do that same bumper style on the rear with the tire sprayer?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "I've done it, so I'll need your truck to do it." So when he came into town, he lives in Utah, but he was from Camarillo. He still is friends with the guy that owns the other shop, Tommy Arms. TRA. Still, Tommy works in Todd's old shop, so Todd comes down here and does some stuff. I dropped my truck off, and he retrofitted or finished building the rear bumper on it.
Sure.
And dude, so stoked.
Yeah, knocked it out of the park.
It looks unreal.
Yeah.
So I want to, there was, when doing the 40s, we did have to clearance the fenders a little bit, so I am going to trim those out. My buddy Nick Killenberger is like an incredible sheet metal artist. He's going to build me some really sleek, thin, factory-esque looking like fender trims so that everything kind of flows still. I think I'd like to readdress the rocker arms a little bit. Todd's going to build me like a plate style rock slider to kind of match the bumpers. I think Mikey and I want to address some TK stuff.
Yeah.
As we know, the TK.
Yeah. So what's up with that?
Yeah,
just put a window in it.
Yeah, we painted the TKs on the side of Oldsmobile Hill and Glamis. Just too much horse torque.
Too much horsepower.
Too many horse torques on the hill. I think that that aluminum case 271, 273 just deflects so much when you have that kind of torque and weight and power. So we want to brace it, tie it into the frame a little bit more.
Well, and then this is all stock motor mounts, trans mounts. Everything's just stock.
Everything's stock.
So that, and so you guys have addressed that as far as not yet.
No, motor mounts and stuff.
Well, I'm just thinking to help brace
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have some ideas on what we want to do with the T-case, but until we really kind of get into it, I'm not sure. I definitely want like the driver's side to grab the frame because that'll so it'll be tied to the trans.
I think both driver and passenger side will grab the frame.
Yeah, we want that thing to not move so much.
What about as far as like underbelly skids? As far as having something kind of integrated, like on the Toyotas, they have skid plates that are integrated into the mount, so it mounts on the bottom of the frame.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I'm like open to that. I want to also do. I mean, right now it's got the electronic selector. Not a big fan of those. They do kind of fail sometimes. Sure. Not that you couldn't get underneath there and manually swap that thing, but I did buy this from the factory, all the factory stuff to convert it to a manual T-case. Sure. So I think that's kind of on the list to do.
Anything that's like electronically selected,
I know. Especially when it's underneath the vehicle, you're like, who thought this was a good idea? It's going to get gummed up and caked up. Yeah, on the highway, it's probably cool, but...
Yeah, so we want to do that.
There's lots of stuff that, I mean, this truck is, if you asked me, it's his truck, if you asked me the build, like, percentage of this truck, we're, like, not even at 10% yet. I mean, this truck's very, very stock.
Sure.
Really is.
Radius arms. I'd like to tie in the rear gas tank to the rear bumper. There's a million things, and I'm this guy, too. Yeah. We talk about stuff all the time. We want to talk about building like some sort of pop-up camper for it that's also kind of like a roll cage, obviously in case he puts this thing on its lid for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to interior cage the cab. Like again, like is that going to take away? Is that going to uncheck some boxes? Am I going to lose some comfort there? Am I going to like what am I willing, or can we kind of do like a roll bar behind the cab underneath the shell in case of a rollover? That's kind of where we're at.
It's tough because it's like while you're unchecking boxes as far as the comfortability on the highway. Right. I look at it like you have a vehicle if you do happen to roll it. Right. If the truck has a cage or let's say you lawn dart it in the dunes and it's not rigid front to rear, you're kind of playing with fire.
100%.
But it's a balancing.
100%, and all it really does come down to like you driver, like you being reserved, not ego driving. Sure. We all suffer from that. We have all had our time. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna let it eat in front of this crowd of people, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, but
it goes to bad.
I'll say so. Bruce was before we started the podcast. He's like, dude, I want you to take the truck on a hot lap, and half throttle the thing. Like he said a few minutes ago, you literally have to hold on to the wheel because it's pulling.
Yeah, it's got some. Healthy.
I was telling him like I would shoot my eye out. Like driving a truck with the mouse or the Forerunner. I'm driving that thing and I'm foot to the floor because it's got 85 horsepower.
But you're just not comfortable with that.
Yeah. But I came from the street racing and like the fast cars, and I've learned to to be self-controlled in that aspect. I mean, I like to curl my toe on the gas pedal, let it eat a little bit, but I'm never like through fourth gear pole footed doing 100.
We all know that guy that every time they leave anywhere they're just fully floored, and Bruce is definitely not.
I've had those days are long and gone. I want to keep it together. I don't want to like continuously fix things.
Sure.
But I do have a spare 6.7 engine and trans it's got a bad crank bearing of some sort. I haven't actually torn into it yet. That I would like to build with some, more robust rods, a couple other modifications, so I could actually put more power to the truck. Like, does the truck need more power? Absolutely not. But like the curiosity in me is not going to allow me to stop here.
Sure.
Right? Like the motorhead in me wants more power.
What's 1,000 horsepower feel like?
I mean, I feel like anybody in the automotive space building anything, whether it's like one of those,
for sure.
What are those? The rock
bouncers?
It's not a rock bouncer. What are the hydro cars?
Oh, the lowriders.
Yeah, like a lowrider. It's like you're building one of those. You're always chasing the thing. You're building.
I think I could hop it 20 feet.
For sure. You're like, I think I can hop it so hard that it's going to sit on the rear bumper. All those guys are thinking that.
Pre-runner.
the same thing.
Like, is anybody actually just completely satisfied with where their vehicle is?
I hope.
I don't know.
Well, I
don't know. Maybe there is, but
I mean, I think kind of to your situation with the Bronco, you peaked and you realized we're at your fork in the road. I go down this way, and there's basically no turning.
There's no turning back, and like once I start investing on that road, I've got to finish it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a tough deal.
Yeah.
I'm like for me, these builds are all about the learning and the experimentation. I do not want to do, even though it's proven. Like I'm nothing against like the guys at Carly, nothing against any of these guys. Like I love what they've done. They've completely opened a whole lane for the diesel off-road enthusiasts. Like to me, hats off to them. I respect that, but I also want to figure things out on my own and do things differently. Whether that be right or wrong, I want to experiment.
And I'm in the same boat, and every time you come to me with a wild idea, I'm like, let's try it out.
What do you think of this? Right? And he's like, I don't think and then the brainstorming and the theorizing of it and actually putting foot to flame, kind of building these new ideas is what fuels this for me. Buying a truck and buying bolt-on parts and having it could be the most capable truck on earth. Like it just takes most of the fun out of it for me.
Sure.
Right. So making a truck that's meant to tow trailers and be good at basically just that, and turning it into a truck that is good in the desert, good in rock crawling, has a way more power than it's supposed to, and can drive it comfortably, full blasting AC, Well, that was the fun challenge
too. So again, just drove it, and it cruises down the highway. I mean, it's a lifted truck. Yeah. It's
but it's not super tippy. It doesn't. It's not twitchy. The steering's very responsive.
I pull a Yui, and I'm like, I don't know if I can make that turn. He's like, dude.
You turn this thing.
It's just on a dime. Just
turn to the second lane. He's like, he starts laughing. I was like, it was a
Yeah, so you think about that for wheeling.
100%. That was great in the rocks.
Whereas if you had a full long bucks,
what's guys doing? Like props to them. You know,
all those full size Asian dudes they're out
100%, there. 100%, and hats off to them. That's super sick. But I like I wanted also like the uniqueness of a single cab short bed. Like that's obviously,
and it's more fun.
Sure,
I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's more fun.
Just like different stuff.
Short stuff's fun.
This truck is one that if you see it in the parking lot, you kind of walk by and it's you kind of look at it and then you like look back at it and you're like, oh shit, like it looks like it looks like an old Bronco.
It does,
but then it's
most people are like they'll look at it, they're like, oh, it's something is strange about that truck, right? They won't like, oh, it's a short bed truck. They'll just like. And they'll kind of like ponder. And I mean, I left Home Depot the other day, and this dude's just underneath this thing, and just like all up in this. Yeah, and I walk up, he's like, "Dude, this thing is crazy." He's just stoked on life. Yeah. He's like, is this a short bed? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I've never seen that. I didn't know they made that. I was like, they didn't. We cut 16 inches out of the frame, and we like shortened the driveline. We did all this other stuff. And he's like, this is the coolest truck I've ever seen.
But it's just different, and that's
different.
That's what's rad.
I just wanted. I strive to be different in that aspect. And again, like the Bronco, wasn't that different.
No. There's 100.
Very generic sleeper truck. Worked great. The tuning we did to it, the dual shock in the rear, there was different things we did to it. It was so dialed. Like Mikey calls it anybody could jump in that truck and just.
You could put any wife or girlfriend in that truck, put it in drive, and just go point the steering wheel where you want to go.
Sure.
As fast as you feel comfortable going, and that truck would do it.
It just lacked around.
Never
600 horsepower.
Sure.
It just didn't have.
It didn't have the way the cojones that this new one does. So.
But so what would you say is the kind of your plan? Just continue on kind of the evolution, and then just take it out, kind of work the bugs out.
Yeah, we need to definitely get more trips on it for sure.
You need to get it set up for more rock crawling.
Yeah.
Definitely got to get a winch in the winch.
Want to get a winch in the front. I really want to dial in the rear too, like the camping setup. Like I have it pretty solid, got pack outs in the drawer, but I want to get like a spare driveline. I want to start retrofitting some of that stuff. It definitely needs wheel tubs. Those 40s just stuff right in those factory tubs, and it's still got like 4 inches to the bumps. So I think with building a custom wheel tub, tolerance to the fenders a little bit more, addressing the T case is super important right now. I I do want to do something with the front radius arms. I want to do a parallel 4-link. Mikey's still thinking we should stay radius arms. That's to be discussed. I don't know. Again,
I think it's going to help with road manners.
Well, again, right. So like I will.
Truck drive's so good.
It does.
It doesn't have a sway bar. There's no room for a sway bar in the front anymore because the way the coilover's mounted. So it's like that's in my opinion, and I could be completely wrong.
Right.
It's the only reason why this truck drive. You can go 70 miles an hour down the road, highway. You have to do an evasive maneuver because there's something in the road. No problem. Yeah. It's like driving a lifted truck, like you said, where it's like if we 4-link the front or 3-link the front or whatever the plan is. I don't know if it's going to
be like your Explorer or my Prelander.
It might be some weird stuff, but again, like it'd be cool to flex more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that'd be real dominating in the rocks, but I think we need to get it on the rocks.
I'm just afraid you're gonna lose. Yeah. You're gonna lose road manners.
And again, so checking another box, unchecking a box, like I gotta weigh those options. Is it worth it to me to do that? Could we remedy that tippiness with a sway bar, like a custom sway bar? Probably. So, but I mean,
get fancy like Michael Allen and do like an electronic 1%.
I was talking like a locking 100%. Hub, like a worn hub that you lock and unlock and something like that.
Might have to get a custom length sway bars, custom arms, and we.
But like Mikey was saying, the Ultra 4 guys, those guys run sway bars when they're racing.
Front rear,
rock right through those rocks, no problem. So I don't know. I mean, again, that's kind of up in the air. I definitely want to ditch the factory radius arms. Those bushings are only going to last so long, I think. More power.
Roll cage, maybe.
Yeah, roll cage.
Yeah, it needs a cage. That thing's way too fast.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to build
shoot your eye out, kid.
I'm going to have to address as good as that trans is, it's only going to take that abuse for so long. You're
going
to need to build a trans at some point in time. It is a diesel. They are known to smoke.
I wonder, like, with the luxury pre-runner dudes, how, I've never ridden in a luxury pre-runner, but I'm assuming that they're fairly quiet, and how do they maintain that? Is it just like the dyno matting, or they like fill in the tubing with foam? Or
I'd love to ride in one because I just have a hard time believing that a completely tube chassis vehicle with bypasses, I don't care how much dynomat's in it, is ever going to be quiet.
I don't think that they're quiet like you guys are thinking they're quiet. It's quiet enough that with enough dynomat and a headset.
Right, so that's the deciding factor for me. Can you ride in that thing without headsets?
You can.
Yeah, but it's
loud.
Is that going to be comfortable? You know what I mean? Like this
thing. The engine's still loud, The bypasses are loud.
Right.
Bypasses are so loud.
So loud.
I know. Those ADSs on the rear are an absolute game changer. I think more and more people, once they figure these shocks out, are going to be pushing that for sure.
Yeah.
And the price range is completely
very fair.
Very fair.
Very fair.
If
you consider putting those on a truck, if you're thinking about linking your like Ranger and you're going to do a 2.5 coilover, 2.5 bypass, with springs, like those shocks, those single shock each corner is about the same price, and it's
100%.
In my opinion, easier to tune if you get the tuning right, and it's just so nice.
What's cool is like the actual, so those shocks, that even though they are internally bypassed, which you can take apart and tune them, they have compression dampening and rebound dampening on a clicker.
High and low
on each clicker, right? Yeah. So,
4-way adjustable.
And I'm here to tell you, like, if you were to adjust like Fox DSC, like you can somewhat notice, but like from absolutely open to absolutely closed, you're like, oh, I kind of notice a difference. These things, like, it's like 1 or 2 clicks. You're like, oh, this made a huge amount of difference. I adjusted the rebound because I thought the thing wasn't like wasn't bringing that back in quick enough, and I adjusted like 2 clicks, and now it's like just freeway overpass, just throwing the back up. I was like, oh, I'll take it back 1 click, and I have like 10 clicks to go. So like they're really they really do adjust. So I
was going to ask, this isn't tuned as far as out of the box with the clickers.
This is whatever Mikey.
This thing fucking works.
Yeah, whatever Mikey and Tyler put together.
Mostly Tyler.
I mean, obviously he works for ADS. Put together on this thing. Dude, he got it dialed. Now Tyler would love to take these things apart and mess them apart, and I think I would too.
Yeah.
But
Carl.
The truck's too fast as it is. So
it gets to a point like, what are we doing?
Like, what am I going to push this thing at like 60 miles an hour in the wheel?
Exactly.
Like, that's crazy.
I want you to go through the section at 80, Bruce. You're like, I don't have a cage.
Yeah. I mean, the truck weighs on the CAT scale. This truck weighs. This is the last time I weighed it without the mercenary bumpers and the spare tire. That thing weighed 8,100 pounds.
Yeah. So
it's not a light truck by 80. It's a
truck.
big for. Most people are like, that thing's got to weigh 6,000 pounds. Like, dude, I wish,
Yeah.
But I think the weight also is
It
what
helps.
adds to the comfort.
No, 100% helps.
You know what I mean? So
Because you got a heavy drivetrain package you're trying to push around, axles and everything. Heavier the truck, the unsprung weight feels less.
The sprung weight is matching the unsprung weight
Exactly.
with this truck, which is nice. Where the guys like Mikey's new Explorer, he's got a lot of unsprung weight. Who knows what's gonna happen? How it's
That's
gonna
be tough to tune.
I know guys can make it work, but it is definitely brings a lot of. It makes it hard to tune.
It makes more challenges for sure.
There's a lot more challenges. So.
Well, cool. Well, I'm excited to see this thing obviously in action, going on trips.
No, we're gonna do
in
some
the
stuff
desert
soon.
and rocks, and
I'm itching.
it's just cool to see the evolution of your history, and I mean, I think other people, listeners, can kind of learn from it. It's like, just because you get a truck, it doesn't mean that that's your end all truck. Make sure that
even if you want it to be,
100%.
Make
Bruce
sure you're checking
wanted
those
the
boxes.
Bronco to be the truck. Like, he wanted that truck to be his truck. Like, I could see it in his eyes. He's like, every time we were going to do something he would just like, maybe this is going to be the time that I'm like really invested in this truck, and it just never happened.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Yeah. But I think that it can be, as people obviously, needs change, interests change, and like myself. Okay, I built a single cab, pre-runner.
Right.
Well, now I have a family.
100%.
That doesn't work.
That's tough.
And it works. Okay, well the kids are young, but now when I want to put 4 people in a single cab Toyota, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, so. But then you just learn from your, I don't even want to call them mistakes.
Definitely
They're
not
just,
mistakes.
No. Your life changes.
Experiences.
You're just changing your vehicle to cater your life more. And right now, I don't have any kids. I have 2 dogs, and again, that was part of the factor. I wanted a place for my dogs to go, so the shell with a platform makes a lot more sense. I'm not going to take them in the woods, but
Sure.
But like on long road trips, they're comfortable back there. I can crack the back window, AC can get in there. They're good. They're comfy. So you just kind of alter your vehicles to cater your lifestyle a little bit. So
That's okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But I can encourage most people, like, as much as you think you want the ultimate like pre-runner or the ultimate rock crawler, or just if you want to go full bore in one direction, just really think about like what you want to do. Like, do you want to like get out there? And for me, as the DMC and the Badlines guys were changing their trip styles, I wanted to be able to say yes to any of the trips and feel confident that my vehicle wasn't going to be holding anybody up.
Sure.
Right? So...
And not have to have multiple vehicles.
And not have to have multiple vehicles. Like, like I'm not in a place in my life where I want to be investing in multiple vehicles, right? So I was like, I want one vehicle that checks most boxes, as many boxes as it can. And this is what I landed on. And that's going to be different for you. That's going to be different for the next person, but I encourage most people to really think about that aspect. You can have a lot of fun in a vehicle that isn't a full-blown trophy truck
100%.
or isn't a full-blown rock crawl TJ, or
it's almost more fun
the
less built
100%.
it is.
I love the challenge.
I agree.
Yeah, of
which is tough to say. All of us obviously have built trucks, but it's like you think about if we just went out in your work truck, my Tundra, your work truck, we still would have just as much fun.
It would be a chat.
It'd be fun.
It'd be laughing. It would be so much
It'd be a great
fun.
time.
So it's
I totally.
But like
agree.
Bruce also said, is half the fun of off-roading for some people. Some people, it's just about getting out there and doing what they want to do. Half the fun of off-roading is the progression of the vehicle that you're building, or you want to build, or you own, or whatever. It's like, it's stock. Now it has a lift kit. Now it has wheels and tires. Like all those the things that you're checking off, and then you can again. I've had the Bronco for 15 years, as long as you've had the Mouse or whatever it's been. I can look back now and go, oh, back 8 years ago, that was the pinnacle of when I should have stopped building the truck. But then you just keep going. You just keep building it because it's fun. And then you're like, man, I wish my truck was like it was 8 years ago, but is what it is now.
The build process is what does it for me. I could never buy somebody's finished project.
Sure.
Like the driving of the truck is just icing on the cake for me, but like the fun, like go back and fix what's broken, make it better. How do I make it stronger? And especially when you're working on a platform that hasn't reached those boundaries. Like I would argue that most of these F-250s that Carly's building probably aren't as capable as this, but obviously most of these guys aren't linking a Super Duty and doing that aspect. So I'm going to be entering thresholds of
100%.
weak links on this truck that most people haven't been able, and I'm looking forward to figuring out how to make that better.
And that's the mindset you have to have when you're doing this.
Yeah, because you're totally pioneering.
100%. And to me, that is the fun of the unknown of what's going to happen of building these projects, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just,
it's awesome.
Could be different for everybody else.
Well, good shit. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely.
And,
thanks for having us.
We'll see you guys on the next one.
Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.